Hi, hello, it's me, Julian Greystoke, indie author and also freelance developmental editor. Yes, that's right, I'm taking this show on the road. As I've been trying to launch my freelancing career, it has come to my attention that while I'm trying to advertise my developmental edits, that people might not quite know exactly what that is and also why they should hire me versus, let's say, a different developmental editor. A lot of times, authors don't even really know what a developmental editor is or what they do. So today, I am going to be not only explaining to you what I do, but also walking you through my process so that you know, if you buy my services, exactly what you're going to get. And you will be able to look at this both through the video and then in the file that I will be working on my laptop here. Because I wanted an example of my work, but I couldn't very well use any of the stories that people were sending me because those are clients, and I can't just go use their stories. That would be rude. So I had Chat GPT write me a one-page story so I can developmentally edit it and show you what it's gonna look like when I developmentally edit your story. But before we get started, what do I even mean by developmental editor? Usually when people hear editor, they think spelling, grammar, sentence structure, punctuation, that sort of thing. That's not the kind of editor I am. A developmental editor is someone who goes through your story looking for issues with the plot, the characters, the pacing, the ending, anything story-wise, structure-wise, all of that kind of thing that might not be working. We're here to notice plot holes. We're here to help you beef up and strengthen your story or help you figure out where to remove something that's not working. But why hire a developmental editor when beta readers exist? Well, yeah, beta readers are 100% a great resource. I always use beta readers myself. I love using them. But beta readers, by the nature of it, are readers. They are not professionals. And yeah, they're going to help you catch a lot of stuff, but somebody who has been working with developmental editing for longer, both in my own books and I have done a lot of critique sessions in person, online, throughout my lifetime, my career, if you will. So I have a lot more experience with what I'm looking for in a developmental edit. But oftentimes, beta readers lack the ability to articulate exactly what is wrong or what you should do about it. Versus if you get a developmental edit, I can tell you why this might not be working and also give you actionable ideas about how you might be able to get the thing to where you want it to be. But why should I hire you, Julian, a developmental editor, instead of any other developmental editor? Well, I like to think that I stand out a little bit different because I am incredibly thorough. A lot of developmental editors that you'll see on Fiverr are saying that they will give you a 1, 2, 3-page guaranteed developmental letter at the end of reading your manuscript. And that's fine, that's great if that's what you want, but I am going to be a whole lot more thorough than that. I am actually going to be leaving comments in your manuscript about things on the page as they are happening to help you strengthen your story all the way through. That is the kind of thoroughness that you get when you hire me. When I say I do micro and macro, that's what I mean. I'm not only looking at the macro of the story overall, how is it working, how is it flowing, is the ending working, is the beginning working? I'm also looking at the micro. Are you showing versus telling, both on the story level and the sentence level? Is this piece of dialogue out of character for this character? Let's explore that. So you're getting a lot of in-depth stuff when you hire me. But let's not talk about it anymore. Let's actually look at my example. Now, I did ask the robot on the internet to write me a 1-page story, which means that it is a short story or potentially could fall under microfiction, which I do critique. But short stories and microfictions behave differently than novels, so as I go through it, I'll try to give you ideas of how I would critique this if it was coming to me as a microfiction versus how I would critique this if it was coming to me as a novel. The styles and trends are different for different types of writing. So if you come at me with a short story, you would get different types of thoughts than you would get if you came at me with a novel, simply because they are two distinctly different creatures. Does that make sense? okay. So if I had just received this one-page short story, the first thing that I would do is I always remind the person that I'm critiquing for that while they, yes, have hired me and value my expertise, I may point out things that they don't agree with. And that's okay. That doesn't make you a bad writer for not agreeing with me, and it doesn't make me a bad editor for noticing it. It is impossible to keep taste out of any critique. And so I might notice something and point it out that you don't think is a problem. And the key is to always remember that it is your book. You are its parent. You get to make every decision for it. So you get to decide whether you think my critique is worth implementing or not. That's the fun part. All right, so let's get started. I will read you this short story as we go because it's only a page long and it was written by a robot, so no copyright issues to deal with here. And we'll talk about where I would stop and leave critiques, and then on the page I will be stopping to leave those critiques so that I can put the document up for everyone to see online later on. But let's get started. Also, if you hear noises in the background, that's ferrets. There are ferrets loose, and in fact I do hear noises and I kind of wonder what they're up to. Alright, it's just one of our ferrets, Maureen, playing in a drawer. She's fine. Let's get on to the story. It does not have a title, and there's a chance that the author would say, hey Julian, can you help me figure out a title for this? And that's something I can help you do as well. As the sun began to set on the small village, the author sat at his desk, quill in hand, struggling to find the words to complete his latest manuscript. He had been working on it for months, but something wasn't right. Alright, so I always like to break down the first line, first paragraph, see how it is grabbing us, especially if the author tells me that they are going to try for traditional publishing. We need a very grabby beginning. This is a serviceable beginning. There is nothing grabby about it. It just is a statement of fact. Here is the author. Here is his struggle. Very straightforward and plain and simple. As a short story beginning, while it is not grabbing, it is not the worst thing ever, especially if you have a word limit like you're only doing a one-page short story. However, if this was a novel, I would definitely be wanting a lot more detail, such as giving the author a name, placing us in space a little bit more. Let's have some details about the sunset maybe, or let's get some visceral details about the author sitting at his chair, describe his desk, describe his motion. Is he tapping the pencil because he can't get any ideas? So basically, if this was a novel, I would ask you to beef this up a little bit. You might also ask, hey Julian, if this is a short story, should we still name the author? And for a one-page short story, not necessarily. You'll notice that he never gets a name. He is always called the author. And for a one-page short story, that can work. For a longer short story or for a novel, you're going to want to give him a name, probably, unless you're doing something very distinct by never giving him one. Suddenly, a loud roar echoed through the town, followed by the sound of flames and destruction. So this, again, is a very plain sentence. It does its job, although I would ask the author if they want to tweak the sound of flames and destruction. The sound of destruction, that's pretty easy to detect from inside a building. But the sound of flames is a little bit more subtle and would definitely be overpowered by the sound of destruction. So do you want to change that sentence so it makes a little bit more sense, so we're not wondering how is he hearing the flames? That's a nitpick, but I would still point it out, and it would be up to the author whether they wanted to change that or not. I mean, everything's up to them, but that especially. The smaller stuff, the nitpickier stuff, I'll point it out. No big deal if you decide, no, that's not what I want. There's also a suddenly at the beginning of the sentence. I would recommend that they get rid of it. Suddenly is usually not necessary because it is implied that the thing that is happening like right now. However, again, this could be a taste thing and some authors would want to leave it, and that's okay. Rushing to the window, the author saw a massive dragon circling the town, breathing fire and causing chaos. Panic set in as the villagers ran for cover. So here I would leave the note of, let's get a little bit more visceral with this. Even if this is a short story, give us a couple more details. What is currently on fire? What are the villagers doing? Are some of them running the wrong direction and running into danger? Are they running into their homes, or are they running out of the town? They're running for cover. Is there a woods nearby? A few more specific details. Specificity is your friend. The author knew that he couldn't just sit there and watch. He had to do something to save the town. The main character of the story is doing something proactive. You love to see it. But first of all, I would like to see some hints that this is in his personality before this. So possibly as he's sitting there struggling to write his story, perhaps he's thinking about, gosh, I wish that I could be a brave hero so I knew what it was like, so I could write that more realistically. Something like that. Tie it into his personality or his overall problem and arc in the story. But also, I want to see who else is trying to save the town and failing. Why does it seem right now that the author is the only person interested in saving the town while everyone else is running for cover? So either perhaps explaining why it's just him, or who else is trying to save the town, but they're getting killed by the dragon. Maybe the town guard is here and he sees a bunch of them get toasted. Maybe the town guard are cowards and they also ran away. Taking a deep breath, the author grabbed his trusty pen and notebook and headed out of his house. He ran towards the dragon. He knew it was no ordinary beast. This was a creature of myth and legend, one that could only be defeated with bravery, cunning, and a little bit of luck. So as a short story, I do like that line. It sets the tone in a very succinct way. However, if this was a novel, I would definitely want to see a lot more of that play out. But we would be able to have a lot more preamble. We would be able to get to know the author a lot more, presumably in a novel. And so we would also learn of his world, that he lives in a world where there are certain types of monsters that are fairy tale monsters that have to be defeated in a certain way. With his heart pounding in his chest, the author approached the dragon, pen at the ready. So here I would point out a redundancy. This is again a nitpick that you, the author, get to decide if you care or not. Heart pounding in his chest, heart pounding. Where else would his heart pound except in his chest? If it's pounding somewhere else, point it out. If it's not, in his chest is redundant. Again, if this were a novel, I would want a lot more detail here. What does the dragon look like? Where is it in relation to him? Where is it in the town? What has it already destroyed? Obviously, a novel allows you to have so much more detail, and it should have so much more detail. Whereas a short story, especially a single-page short story, is going to have to rely mostly on telling. The beast turned its massive head towards him, and for a moment the author froze, but then he remembered why he was here: to save the village, to finish his story, and to prove to himself that he was capable of anything. Okay, so again, this feels a lot like an outline of a story and not an actual story, because it is hitting all of the beats. The Chat GPT knows that there's supposed to be a moment where the main character is uncertain, and this is that moment. However, because it is a robot writing a single-page story, it has done it in the most bland and telly way possible, where the author freezes for a minute and then remembers what he's doing. We definitely want to avoid that in our writing, even in a short story. We want to go deeper with the author and his emotional state. Even if it is a short story, you can still throw a couple extra lines in there about what pushes him past his fear. The fear is pretty understandable. It's what gets him past it that's going to be important. If this is a novel, he's going to reach for things that he has learned, friends that he has made, knowledge that he has gained along the course of his story. Summoning all his courage, the author raised his pen and charged towards the dragon, ready to do battle. The beast reared back, prepared to strike. But the author was not afraid. He was a writer, and he knew that words had power. And so, with a mighty shout, he began to write, weaving a tale of heroes and dragons, bravery and sacrifice. As the author wrote, the dragon began to falter, its flames dying down and its roar growing weaker. Okay, once again, as a single-page short story, this is not too bad. It is bringing together elements. We know that it's an author, and we already have established that this is a fairy tale type dragon. So it subverts our expectations. He's going to leap into battle, but oh no, he's got a pen and he's writing. And somehow that is defeating the dragon. Now, obviously, if this were a novel, again, I would want a lot more detail in this moment. We would have set up beforehand that there are certain types of monsters that you can defeat in certain types of ways, and we would also set up the arc of this character, where he goes from one place as a character to the place where he is the sort of person who will face off against a dragon with a pen and paper. In a novel, we would need a lot more detail about how he got to this place and this situation, but in a short story, especially a very short story like this, it's working. We are blessed with a visit from Chai the ferret. Hello! Chai will also be helping me do my developmental edits. So if you like to think about your story being interacted with by an adorable, adorable ferret, then you should also hire me. She helped me just the other day by walking across the keyboard, and I had to figure out what she had done. so I can reverse it. Very helpful. Thank you for your time and efforts, Chai. I'll see you later. And then, with one final stroke of his pen, the author vanquished the beast, sending it crashing to the ground in a fiery explosion. The villagers cheered as the author emerged victorious, his notebook held high in triumph. And as he looked out at the ruins of the town, he knew that he had found the inspiration he was searching for he had faced his fears, defeated the dragon, and written a story that would inspire generations to come. Okay, even if this was a short story, I would point out that we don't know what his fears actually were. He supposedly faced them. But what were they? He faltered when he was faced with a dragon. Reasonable, most people would. But what specifically were his fears that he faced to reach this moment of heroic action? Obviously, again, if this was a novel, we would be following him through all of his story to this exciting climax, and we would know, we would understand what he was writing here. But because it's a short story, we don't get that. And maybe it doesn't matter for such a short story. But we do want to see, if we're going to have an ending like he faced his fears, we do need to know what those fears are, or else you're lying. The ending is a lie, and we don't want to do that to our readers. Here I might also make suggestions for what some of his fears could be. This might be one of the cases where I leave you suggestions, and you can see if any of my suggestions spark joy, and then run with them, because it is your book, so it's your job to actually, implement any suggestions that you like. So there you go. That is my edit of this single-page short story written by a robot. And I will try my best to make this available in numerous places where you can check it out, see what my actual written notes look like, and decide if this is something you want for yourself. Whether it be a short story, a microfiction, a novella, or a novel. Now, if you go on my Fiverr, you will see that I have certain packages set up with certain word counts on them, but these are just to give you an idea. These are not set in stone. Every single one of my commissions for critiquing on Fiverr is probably going to be a custom package. So you message me, you tell me how many words you have, any other things you want to talk about, and then I will send you that custom deal telling you what the price overall is going to be. So don't worry if your book is much shorter or much longer than the packages that I have up there. Those are just examples because Fiverr requires me to put something there. Also, if you're feeling the financial pinch and you don't feel like you can dump a lump sum of money right now, we can also work something out where we can do it in installments, where you will give me so many words a week, a month, whatever works for you, a paycheck, whatever works for you, and I will go through it, and then we can do it in several smaller sections versus you having to produce all of those funds right away. And I do offer a deal for your first 5K words. It's only $25. So if you want to know firsthand what my style is like and you want to know what it's like working with me, but I'm very flexible, I'm very communicative, so don't be afraid to message me. I am, as of the filming of this, available for full manuscript, so jump on it, because I could start your manuscript right away. A lot of editors right now have a backlog. It's going to be months before they can get to your manuscript, but this is the time right now to pounce if you have a manuscript that's ready. I suppose I also should have mentioned, when is your manuscript ready? Well, it should probably be finished, at least the first draft. I would like you to have done at least one read-through edit yourself, preferably two, but not necessarily two. It kind of depends on you as an author. And definitely do not hire that line copy editor before you use my services, because things are going to change in your book. So I don't want you to waste your money getting everything all shined up spelling and grammar wise, only to have to do it again later because you added or subtracted things. Don't worry, I am not going to give you a hard time about spelling errors or not knowing how to use commas, because that's not my area of expertise. As long as it looks like you at least tried to polish it up to make it more readable for me, I'll be okay. And if you want to support me and my budding career, but you don't have a book that you want me to critique, you can support me on Patreon or on my Ko-fi. Any donation helps, but on Patreon you get rewards at certain levels, so you get a little bit of bang for your buck over there. Also, I am an author, so if you want to read any of my books, they're available now on Amazon for you to purchase. And you can feel free to wander around this channel to your heart's content. Here on my YouTube channel, I have lots of videos talking about writing, talking about books, so you're bound to find something else that you like. But for today, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time with whatever it is I happen to be doing next time. Bye!